She didn't believe in ghosts until she saw him with her own eyes. A man who died 5 years ago was standing in her house, calling her by name. A memory error, an optical illusion, or had someone decided to play a cruel game? I never believed in the supernatural, but now I'm beginning to question my own sense of reality. It all started with a single phone call. It was late evening, I had just finished work and was sitting in the kitchen, finishing my 3rd cup of coffee. The phone rang, the number unidentified. I answered. Emily. A voice that made my heart clench. It was Peter. My brother. He died 5 years ago. I froze, feeling blood pounding in my temples. It was his voice, slightly husky, deep, with that barely perceptible hint of mockery. I couldn't utter a word. Emily. He repeated, and then the connection cut off. I sat for a long time, staring at my phone screen, trying to come up with a logical explanation. A network glitch? Someone playing a cruel joke? I decided to call back. The phone rang, but no one answered. I opened my call history. That call wasn't there. The next day, returning home, I saw him. Peter was standing outside my house, in the shadow of a streetlight, wearing the same leather jacket he had on the day of the accident. I froze. Everything inside me tightened with primal terror. He didn't move, just watched me. I blinked, and he was gone. I didn't tell anyone. How do you explain something that can't exist? But the more I tried to forget, the more strange things happened. I found objects that had been missing for years, heard footsteps in an empty house. Then came the letter. An envelope with no stamp, just my name. Inside, a sheet of paper with one word, help. That same evening, I dove into old records, into Peter's case. Back then, everything looked like an accident, his car plunged off a bridge, the body found a week later. But I could never shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I went to see the detective who handled the case. Harrison met me with irritation, but softened when he saw my face. Has Peter been visiting you? He asked unexpectedly. I went cold. What? You've seen him, haven't you? He came to me too. I stared at him, unable to comprehend whether he was joking or had lost his mind. That's impossible. He's dead. Harrison sighed and stood up, walked to the cabinet, and pulled out an old, worn file. I've been reviewing the case. The autopsy was conducted surprisingly quickly. And the body? He paused. More accurately, what was left of it? The face was unrecognizable. My fingers went cold. Are you saying it wasn't Peter? I'm saying we might have made a mistake. I remembered the letter. Help. If Peter was alive, where was he? I returned home and turned on my laptop. I typed in the name of a person who hadn't existed for 5 years. And I found something. A strange news item in a local newspaper. An unknown man in a hospital, suffering from memory loss. Found a week ago on an empty highway. The photo was blurry, but, the eyes. I knew those eyes. I got in my car and drove. When I entered the hospital room, he looked at me. I expected anything, surprise, confusion. But he smiled. Emily. He said. It was Peter. Or someone who very much wanted me to believe it was. Who really died in that car. And if Peter was alive, why had he been silent all these years? The hospital room was sparse and clinical, painted an institutional shade of pale green that did nothing to mask the smell of antiseptic. The man in the bed, Peter. My brother, looked thinner than I remembered, his face gaunt with faint scars along his jawline. His eyes, though, those were unmistakably Peter's eyes. Hazel with flecks of gold near the pupils, exactly like our father's. You came, he said softly, his voice raspy as if from disuse. I wasn't sure you would. I stood rooted at the doorway, clutching my purse so tightly my knuckles had turned white. The logical part of my brain screamed this couldn't be happening. Peter was dead. I'd identified his body, what was left of it, signed the death certificate, scattered his ashes in Lake Michigan where we used to swim as kids. "Who are you?" I finally managed, my voice barely above a whisper. A flash of pain crossed his face. "You know who I am, Em. Only Peter called me that. Em. Not Emily, not Ember like our parents did. Just Em." I took a tentative step forward. "My brother died 5 years ago. I buried him." He shook his head slowly. "No, you buried someone. But it wasn't me." A nurse appeared at the doorway behind me, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Doe, time for your medication." She looked at me with professional courtesy. "Family?" Before I could answer, Peter spoke. "Yes. My sister." The nurse nodded, seemingly unsurprised. "The doctor will be pleased. He's been asking for you specifically since he was brought in." Kept saying a name. "Emily," I finished. "That's right." She handed Peter a small paper cup with pills. 10 minutes, then he needs rest." After she left, I pulled the visitor's chair closer to the bed. Close enough to see him properly, but not close enough to touch. I wasn't ready for that. "If you're really Peter, tell me something only he would know," I challenged. A slight smile tugged at his lips. "The scar on your left knee. You got it when you were 9, trying to climb Mrs. Whitaker's apple tree. I told you it was a bad idea, but you went anyway. When you fell, I carried you 3 blocks home, and we told Mom you tripped on the sidewalk because we weren't supposed to be in old Whitaker's yard." The memory hit me like a physical blow. No one knew that story. We'd never told another soul. "Peter," I whispered, reaching for his hand involuntarily. "What happened? Where have you been?" His fingers were cold but squeezed mine with surprising strength. "I don't remember everything. There are gaps. Big ones." Frustration flickered across his face. "I woke up in a cabin in northern Michigan about 2 weeks ago. No idea how I got there or where I'd been before. But I knew my name, and I knew I had to find you. But the phone call. Standing outside my house. The letter." Confusion clouded his eyes. "What letter?" I've been in this hospital since they found me on the highway. Before that, the cabin. I haven't called you or sent anything." A chill crept up my spine. If Peter had been here, then who, or what, had been haunting me at home? I left the hospital with more questions than answers and a gnawing sense of unease. Night had fallen, and the drive back to my house in the Chicago suburbs felt longer than usual. Every shadow on the road seemed to move, every set of headlights in my rearview mirror looked like they were following me. Detective Harrison had agreed to meet me at my house. His car was already in my driveway when I pulled up, its engine still ticking as it cooled. He leaned against the hood, smoking a cigarette, a habit he'd supposedly quit years ago. "Well?" he asked as I approached. He didn't need to elaborate. "It's him," I said, still not fully believing my own words. "It's Peter." Harrison exhaled a long stream of smoke that caught the porch light. "You're sure?" "As sure as I can be. He knows things only Peter would know." Harrison nodded slowly. "Then we have a problem." He dropped his cigarette, crushing it under his shoe. "Because if that's Peter in that hospital bed, then who the hell did we bury 5 years ago?" Inside, I made coffee while Harrison spread the contents of Peter's case file across my dining room table. Accident reports, witness statements, coroner's findings, photographs I couldn't bring myself to look at again. "The body was badly damaged," Harrison said, his voice detached and professional. "Water damage, decomposition, plus the impact trauma. Dental records were inconclusive because of damage to the jaw. We relied heavily on personal effects found with the body, wallet, watch, clothes. And your identification, of course. I wrapped my hands around my coffee mug, seeking its warmth. I barely looked. They showed me a body. I saw the birthmark on the shoulder, the one our whole family has. I just wanted it to be over. Guilt washed over me. Had I been so quick to accept Peter's death that I'd abandoned him to 5 years of, what? Where had he been? Harrison's phone buzzed. He checked it, frowned, then turned the screen toward me. It was a text message from an unknown number. Not Peter. As we stared at the message, all the lights in my house went out at once. Harrison's hand went instinctively to his service weapon. "Stay here," he whispered, but I was already following him into the darkened hallway, my phone's flashlight casting distorted shadows on the walls. "Circuit breakers in the basement," I said, pointing to the door at the end of the hall. Harrison nodded. "You check upstairs, I'll check down there. Don't turn on any lights yet. If someone cut the power from outside, we don't want them to know we're moving around." I crept up the stairs, testing each step to avoid the ones that creaked. The house felt different in the darkness, unfamiliar and threatening. At the top of the stairs, I paused. A faint blue light flickered from my bedroom doorway. My computer, which had definitely been off when I left, was now on, its screen illuminating the room in an eerie glow. I approached cautiously, and saw it was open to an email account I didn't recognize. The inbox contained dozens of messages, all with the same subject line, "Remember." With trembling fingers, I clicked on the most recent one. It contained only an address in Lakeview, a neighborhood on Chicago's north side. A loud crash from downstairs sent me running to the staircase. Harrison was sprawled at the bottom, clutching his head. "Someone was down there," he groaned as I helped him up. "Hit me from behind. Check if they're still in the house." A quick search confirmed we were alone again, but the basement door stood open, cool air drifting up from below. Together, we descended the stairs. The circuit breaker had indeed been tampered with, but there was something else. A small digital recorder had been taped to the inside of the panel. Harrison pressed play. "Hello, Emily." It was Peter's voice again, but different from the man I'd seen in the hospital, colder, more precise. "If you're hearing this, you've already met the imposter. He's dangerous. Don't trust him. Don't trust Harrison either. Meet me where it all began. You know the place." The recorder clicked off. Harrison and I exchanged looks. "What place is he talking about?" Harrison asked. I shook my head. "I don't know." But even as I said it, a memory surfaced, Peter and I as children, a secret fort in the woods behind our childhood home in Evanston. Harrison reset the breaker, and lights flickered back on throughout the house. When we returned upstairs, I found a note slipped under my front door that hadn't been there before. "The bridge. Midnight. Come alone." The bridge where Peter's accident had happened 5 years ago. Harrison insisted on driving me to the bridge, though I argued it was a trap. "Of course it's a trap," he said, checking his gun before holstering it again. "But it's also our best lead." The Kinsey Street Bridge stretched across the Chicago River, its metal framework illuminated by sporadic streetlights that cast more shadows than light. At night, with fog rolling in from the lake, it looked like something from another century, ominous and foreboding. "I'll stay back," Harrison said as we parked a block away. "But I'll have eyes on you the whole time." The bridge was deserted at this hour, the normal bustle of the city muted here where the river carved its path. I checked my watch, 11:58 p.m. The only sound was water lapping against concrete pylons and the distant hum of traffic. At exactly midnight, my phone rang, unknown number. "Hello." I answered, my voice surprisingly steady. "Turn around, Emily." I spun to see a figure at the far end of the bridge, silhouetted against the distant city lights. Even at this distance, I recognized the stance, the set of the shoulders. Peter. I'm here, I said into the phone. Good. Now look to your left, at the water. I approached the railing and peered down at the black water swirling below. A boat was approaching, its running lights off, moving silently with the current. 5 years ago, the voice continued, that boat was supposed to pick me up after I staged the accident. But something went wrong. Someone else was watching. Someone figured out what I was doing. What were you doing, Peter? I asked, my mind racing with possibilities, none of them good. A bitter laugh. Getting out. Starting over. I'd gotten into something I couldn't escape any other way. So you faked your death. I couldn't keep the accusation from my voice. You let me think you were dead for 5 years. It wasn't supposed to be that long. Just until I was safe. But they found me anyway, kept me, somewhere. I escaped 2 weeks ago. The boat was directly below me now, a dark shape on darker water. Who found you? Who kept you? The figure at the end of the bridge started walking toward me. The same people who sent that imposter to the hospital. They're trying to find something I took. Something valuable. I thought of the man in the hospital bed, with Peter's eyes and Peter's memories. He knew things only you would know. Of course he did. The figure was closer now, though still mostly in shadow. They're very thorough. A shout from behind me, Harrison, running onto the bridge, gun drawn. Emily, get down. The figure stopped. You brought him? I told you to come alone. A blinding spotlight suddenly illuminated the bridge from the water below. The boat had floodlights, and men with guns, aiming up at us. The figure broke into a run, toward me, not away. As he entered the pool of light, I saw his face clearly for the first time. It wasn't Peter. It was a stranger with my brother's voice. Gunfire erupted from the boat below. Harrison tackled me to the ground as bullets pinged off the metal bridge around us. The stranger dropped too, clutching his leg where a bullet had struck him. He locked eyes with me, and for a moment, I saw something like regret in them, then he pulled himself to the railing and vaulted over, dropping into the dark water below. Harrison dragged me behind a concrete barrier as more shots rang out. He was shouting into his radio, calling for backup. Within minutes, police sirens wailed in the distance, and the boat's engine roared to life as it sped away downstream. When it was safe to move, Harrison helped me to my feet. Are you hurt? I shook my head, too shocked to speak. That wasn't your brother, Harrison said firmly. I know, I whispered. But neither is the man in the hospital. Dawn found us at a 24-hour diner in a quiet part of town, far from both the bridge and my house. Harrison had insisted we not return there yet. I cupped my hands around a mug of coffee that had gone cold, trying to make sense of everything. So we have 2 men claiming to be Peter, Harrison summarized. One in a hospital with memory loss who knows intimate details about your past, and another who orchestrated an elaborate meeting on the bridge where Peter supposedly died, only to get shot and jump into the river. And neither of them is actually my brother, I added, the words hollow in my mouth. Harrison's expression was grim. We don't know that for certain. The man on the bridge wasn't Peter. I saw his face. And the man in the hospital? I hesitated. He feels like Peter. Talks like him, knows things only Peter would know. But what? Peter had a small crescent-shaped scar on his right hand, from a fishing accident when he was 12. This man doesn't have it. Harrison nodded slowly. Scars can be removed. And memories can be implanted. Shared. How would a stranger know about Mrs. Whitaker's apple tree? Harrison didn't have an answer for that. Instead, He pulled out his phone and showed me a text he'd received while I was in the bathroom. Another unknown number. Storage Unit 217. Lincoln Park Storage. Key in Harrison's desk. I raised an eyebrow. You have a storage unit? Not that I know of, Harrison replied. But I do have a desk with a lot of drawers I haven't cleaned out in years. 2 hours later, after a stop at the police station where Harrison indeed found a key labeled LP-217 in a forgotten envelope, we stood before a roll-up door in a climate-controlled storage facility. The manager had confirmed the unit had been paid for in cash 5 years ago, with payments automated through an offshore account. The lock turned with a satisfying click, and Harrison raised the door. Inside was a single item, a large fireproof safe with a digital keypad. No note, no instructions. Now what? I asked. Harrison examined the safe. 6-digit code. Any ideas? I thought about it. Try 061012. What's that? The date of Peter's accident. June 10, 2012. Harrison punched in the numbers. The safe remained locked. Try 093083, I suggested next. Peter's birth date. I nodded. Again, nothing happened. For 20 minutes, we tried combinations, my birth date, our parents' anniversary, the address of our childhood home. Nothing worked. Finally, out of frustration more than hope, I tried one last number. 739825. The safe beeped, and the lock disengaged with a heavy thunk. Harrison looked at me quizzically. It's meaningless, I explained. A random number Peter made up when we were kids. Our secret code for passing notes. Inside the safe was a single USB drive and a handwritten note that made my breath catch in my throat. It was Peter's handwriting, unmistakably. If you're reading this, I'm probably dead. But if I'm not, and I claim not to know about this safe, do not trust me. The truth is on the drive. I'm sorry for everything. P. The contents of the USB drive painted a disturbing picture. Peter, my quiet, unassuming brother who worked as an IT specialist for a financial firm, had stumbled onto something 5 years ago, evidence of massive financial fraud involving several high-ranking government officials. He'd copied the evidence, planning to turn it over to authorities, when he realized he was being watched. The files included emails, bank transfers, offshore account details, and most chillingly, a list of people who had disappeared after getting too close to the truth. Peter had planned his own disappearance meticulously, but something had gone wrong. This explains why someone would want him gone, Harrison said as we reviewed the files on a secure computer at the police station. But not who's claiming to be him now, or why. My phone rang, the hospital. The man claiming to be Peter had disappeared from his room during the night shift. As Harrison made calls to put out an APB, I scrolled through more of Peter's files. Something caught my eye, a research paper on advanced memory transfer techniques, with sections highlighted about neural mapping and identity assimilation. There were notes in the margins, in Peter's handwriting. Is this what they're planning? Is this even possible? A chill ran through me. What if both men believed they were Peter because, in some way, they had Peter's memories? And if that was possible, what had happened to the real Peter? 3 days later, still no sign of either imposter. I'd been staying in a hotel under police protection, jumping at shadows. Harrison had taken personal leave to pursue the investigation, convinced that the financial conspiracy Peter had uncovered was just the tip of something much larger. I sat on the hotel bed, staring at the last photograph taken of Peter and me together, at a family barbecue a week before his accident. His arm was around my shoulders, both of us smiling into the camera, blissfully unaware of what was coming. My phone chimed with a text. Unknown number, again. Turn on the TV. Channel 7. With trembling fingers, I reached for the remote. Channel 7 was showing breaking news. A body had washed up on the shore of Lake Michigan, tentatively identified as belonging to a John Doe who had recently escaped from Chicago Memorial Hospital. Before I could process this, another text. Now we're both the only ones left. Coffee? Attached was an image, a selfie of a man who looked exactly like Peter, sitting in the hotel lobby downstairs, holding a cup from the coffee shop across the street. I should have called Harrison. I should have alerted the police detail outside my door. Instead, I took the elevator down alone. He was sitting in a corner booth, 2 coffees on the table. As I approached, he looked up with a smile that was achingly familiar. "Hello, M." I slid into the seat across from him, hands folded in my lap to hide their shaking. "Who are you really?" He pushed one of the coffees toward me. "I'm Peter's contingency plan." "What does that mean?" "It means I started as something else, but now I'm all that's left of him." He tapped his temple. "His memories, his knowledge, his mission. The real Peter died 3 years ago, M. They caught him 6 months after he faked his death." I fought back tears. "You're not making any sense. The people Peter was investigating, they're not just financial criminals. They're pioneers in identity transfer technology. They wanted what Peter knew, what he'd hidden. So they took it, directly from his brain." "That's not possible," I whispered. 5 years ago, no. Now." He shrugged. "The man in the hospital was the first attempt, a volunteer implanted with key memories to gain your trust, to find out if Peter had shared his evidence with you. I'm the second version, more complete, more authentic. But you're not Peter." His eyes, Peter's eyes, softened with something like compassion. "Physically? No. But I have his memories, his feelings, his drive to finish what he started and protect you. The real Peter created me as his backup plan, M. He knew they might catch him, so he underwent the same procedure they later used against him. A digital copy, waiting to be activated if he disappeared." I stared at him, this familiar stranger. "If that's true, then whose body is that on the news?" "A third copy, less stable. The bridge was a setup. We've been competing with each other, different versions of your brother fighting to be the real Peter." He leaned forward. "But I'm the only one who knows where the complete evidence is hidden, the stuff that wasn't on that USB drive. That was just Peter's insurance policy." I couldn't process it all. It was too fantastic, too terrible. "What happens now?" "Now we finish what Peter started. We bring it all to light." He reached across the table, his hand hovering over mine but not quite touching. "I know I'm not him, M. But I'm what's left. And I need your help." I looked into those familiar eyes, searching for the truth. Was he Peter's digital ghost? A sophisticated imposter? Or something in between, a copy that believed its own story? "How can I possibly trust you?" I asked. He smiled sadly. "You can't. Not completely. But you're out of better options." Outside the window, I spotted Harrison crossing the street toward the hotel, his face set with purpose. Behind him were 2 men in dark suits I didn't recognize. "Decision time, M," not Peter said, following my gaze. "The detective has his own secrets. His own masters." I had seconds to choose who to trust, a copy of my dead brother, or the detective who'd been helping me. "What would Peter want me to do?" I asked. "He'd want you to trust yourself. Look at the evidence, follow your instincts." He slid a room key across the table. "Room 312. Everything's there. I'll find you, wherever you decide to go." He stood, dropped cash on the table, and walked calmly toward the back exit. I watched him go, this echo of my brother, as Harrison entered the lobby. The detective spotted me and hurried over, concern etched on his face. Emily, are you okay? Who was that man? I looked up at Harrison, studying his face as if seeing it for the first time. Had he known more than he'd admitted all along? Was he part of whatever conspiracy Peter had discovered? Just someone asking for directions, I lied, pocketing the room key. The truth was out there, in room 312, in Peter's hidden evidence, in the memories of a man who both was and wasn't my brother. And I was going to find it, with or without Harrison's help. Because if there was one thing I knew for certain, it was that the only way out of this mystery was straight through it, no matter how strange or dangerous the path might be. Who was the real Peter? Perhaps, in the end, it didn't matter. What mattered was finishing what he started, bringing the truth to light, no matter the cost. The game had changed, but the stakes remained the same. And I was finally ready to play.